Peace and blessings to the 12 tribes of Israel. Today I'm going to deal with a Bible share called Prosperity Principles, right? And I'm just going to roughly go over two clips from Pastor Yemi, and he is of the church called Global Impact. Now, this church is based in Nigeria. I'm assuming it's based in Lagos, and it is about prosperity, right? So it's a prosperity ministry, right? From the clips that I've seen, right? Now, I don't have any problems with this guy. I don't know him. So I don't, this is not a personal attack. I don't know him personally. I'm sure he's a great human being. I'm sure he's a good father and a good man, right? But however, what he's teaching here in his church is the prosperity gospel, and the prosperity gospel is false, right? And the prosperity gospel normally is the word of faith, right? Where they say that the devil, the Most High gave you riches, and the devil came in and he took the riches, and you just need to reclaim it back, and you reclaim it back by the word of faith. So you need to kind of claim it by saying, I am rich, I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich. I reclaim it back from the devil, that kind of stuff. So whatever you say is what will happen. That's why they call it the word of faith. And they also say that the Most High gave us the power over sicknesses, and it's the devil that is coming in that is causing sicknesses. So you need to reclaim it back, or you need to reclaim divine health by saying, I am not sick, I'm not sick, I'm not sick. And all the positive things in the Bible, and you just need to reclaim it back. And that's called the word of faith. Now, obviously, this is incorrect. Now, I don't know if this pastor actually believes in this particular part of the prosperity doctrine, but generally, that's the prosperity doctrine, right? And that's where it's false. But anyhow, without further ado, let's get into this.
Tithing is one of the ways we also don't break the covenant. I said, when you tithe, I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes. That was what got my attention when I was on campus. When I saw, he said he will rebuke, when I tithe, he will rebuke the devourer. You know devourer? When Satan operates that in a man's life, you can earn 150,000. One problem can devour 140 in 30 seconds.
So, as you can see in this clip, there's a Christmas tree. One of the first thing that jumps out at you is the Christmas tree, and if you can see, it's very much decked with all the shiny stuff on it, right? Now, as a Bible believer, as a Christian or an awoken Israelite, whatever you want to call yourself, we are not supposed to worshiping we're not supposed to be worshiping a Christmas tree, and we're not supposed to be upholding Christmas, right? Because Christmas is a celebration of Nimrod, and Nimrod is a pagan god, and we're not supposed to be worshipping pagan gods or celebrating a pagan god. It's a bit like Valentine's Day and Easter. They're all pagan gods, right? And we're not supposed, the Most High banned us from doing that. We're not supposed to do that, right? Because there's only one God, and that's the Most High Yahweh, right? Who is our Father, right? So this is wrong. He shouldn't be doing this, right? So let's go to Jeremiah 10, and we're going to read from 1 to 6. Hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. So the Most High speaking to the children of Israel. Thus said the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, right? So you're not supposed to learn the way of the Gentile nations. That means the other nations. And be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. Why? Because the Most High only showed himself to Israel. He didn't show himself to the nations, right? He revealed himself to Israel, right? For the customs of the people are vain. So their customs are vain because they created their God and they are worshipping their God, right? So their customs are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest. So they cut down a tree out of the forest. They work by the work of the hands of the workman with the axe. So the tree is being cut down out of the forest with a workman which is using an axe. 4, they deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it moved not. So this tree is cut down and then they put it in a stand. And that's what they do with the Christmas tree. They put the Christmas tree in a stand. They fasten it with hammers, etc., so that it stands upright. Just like in this clip, the tree is stood upright, right? So they deck it with silver and gold. So that's what they do with the Christmas tree. They put all the silver and gold, all the shiny things, as you can see in this clip, right? And they put the star on top, don't they? The shining star on top, right? They fasten it with nails and with hammers that it move not. They are upright as a palm tree. So they stand the tree upright like a palm tree, but speak not. It doesn't speak, right? They must needs to be born because they cannot go. Right, so what that means is going into saying that it needs to be carried because it can't go by itself. So the tree has to be carried and then it's fastened and then it stood upright, right? Because let's read that bit again. They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. They must needs to be born because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it in them to do good. Right? So the Most High is saying to the children of Israel, don't be afraid because that tree doesn't have the power to do anything to you. Right? So he's saying, for them, they cannot do evil. He's saying, don't be afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it in them to do good. So he's saying to the nations who are worshipping their pagan god, the Most High is saying, I'm covered you, so don't be afraid, right? Because I've covered you, right? So don't be afraid, right? And he's saying, neither is it in them to do good. So they're not doing any good with it, right? And they can't do anything good with it. 6, for as much as there is none like unto thee, O Lord, thou art great, and thy name is great in might, right? So what that is just reassuring Israel that the Most High is saying, I'm with you, right? Basically, I'm with you, so I've covered you, so don't worry, okay? Now, I said all that to say that in the Christian church, because I've been in these churches for a very long time, there's always a Christmas tree. Someone always puts up a Christmas tree, and the Christmas tree gets higher and higher and higher every year. Just like in this clip, that Christmas tree is very high, right? And then they show the Christmas tree off to show that this is some kind of celebration of Christ's birthday, when it isn't. And that's wrong, right?
Salary does not make great, it's the blessings. You can be earning 1 million and it will not show. Hey, auntie is sick, and your mommy too. You need them, so we should deposit 750,000. Out of 1 million, what thing remain now? He said, I will rebuke the devourer for your sake. I've been praying that prayer for many years. It works. May problems not devour your income in Jesus' name. One man of God said, you see that you tie to God or you tie to Satan. But the devil collects more than 10%.
Now, obviously, he's trying to tell his congregation about tithing. Now, like I've said before, I'm not singling this guy out. I mean, because they're all the same, to be honest. All these prosperity teachers, they're all the same, right? And they always want you to tithe, right? And that's obviously the core of their income, right? Now, there's no biblical scripture that tells you in the new covenant to tithe. All it says is that you're giving what the Lord has laid in your heart to give, you're giving. So you're giving to meet a need. There's no tithing of 10% of your income before tax. It's just not in there. You know, it's just not in there, right? And in the Old Testament, tithing was never money. It was always about the food. It was the food that was either reared on the land or the food that was grown in the land of Israel, right? So in order to tithe, we need to be back in our homeland, right? We need to be back in our homeland, growing food, reaping harvests, and then giving 10% in our increase, wearing the animals on the land. And we're not doing that at the moment, right? Because this is a different time. You know, we're not in our homeland at the moment. The Most High scattered his people to the four corners of the earth. So there's no tithing. We're not supposed to be tithing. It was never money anyway. So I honestly don't know what he's talking about. And he's actually bringing out something which is really false. He's saying that since he's been tithing, things have been going really well for him. I mean, to be honest, I'm not picking this preacher out. I mean, because all the prosperity pimps, they all say the same thing anyway, right? But I just want to point that out to you. You're not under obligation to tithe your income before tax or after tax. You're not. My old church, One of my old churches used to say every single increase. In fact, I think they all used to say it. Every single increase, you need to pay 10%. So if someone gives you £10, then you have to give the church £1. If someone gives you a gift of £20, then you have to give the church £2, right? So that's tithing on every single increase, including your income, which is obviously bonkers.
Today, car spoil. Tomorrow, something breaks. The money is coming, you see it, but something is siphoning it. In fact, when you notice things eating your money, go and ask yourself serious questions. When people come to me, I don't know what's happening. I don't know, but this money came in. Do you tithe? I can't help you. You help yourself. You rebuke the devourer. You will not destroy the fruit of my ground. My pastor said one day the driver was driving, the tire got spoiled. After 3 days, tire got spoiled again. I think the third time, he said, you come here. Something is looking for somebody around here. He asked him, do you tithe? He said, no. You are the one he's looking for. The devourer is always looking for something to devour.
I've been in these churches for a very long time, for years, so I know what they do in terms of tithing, what he's trying to do. And again, I'm not singling him out. I mean, because they all do it, to be honest. They try and make you feel bad for not tithing and say, well, even if you can't afford it, say you can't afford it, you can't afford to tithe money. Right? They would normally say, oh, well, it's your fault. That's why bad things are happening to you. And they will say things like, oh, it's because you have weak faith. It's because you're robbing God. I remember my first pastor, he used to say, if you don't tithe, then it means you're robbing God. So you should put it on your credit card. He would say, oh, tithing is your rent. It's the air that you breathe, and it's everything that you enjoy as a human being. So you have to pay rent on top of that, and that's the tithe, which is 10% on every increase. Now that obviously is false doctrine. That's evil. You don't say that to a bunch of really poor people. You don't say that because they're already subject to payments. Which is a curse that came upon the children of Israel. We are subject to payments, paying a bill for this and a bill for that, and rents is sky high. Especially in big cities, rents are sky high. You've got utility bills to pay. You've got all sorts of bills to pay. You've got children to support. You've got your education fees. You've got all sorts of things piling up that you have to pay. So when you come to church and you want to hear about the Most High, and then they start, pouncing on you with the tithe money, and it doesn't stop at tithing. In these prosperity churches, it never stops at tithing, because my old pastor used to say, oh, well, your tithe is over and above. Your tithing is what you're supposed to do, but your offering is over and above your tithe, which is false doctrine, of course, because they say you have to give an offering too. Your tithing doesn't count as an offering because you have to do it, which is a lie. Okay, and that's what they do. They say if you don't pay your tithe, then bad things are going to happen to you, and that is false doctrine. That's not right. You shouldn't do that. And also, something else I wanted to point out is that obviously this is based in Nigeria. It seems like it's based in Lagos, right? So it's based in Nigeria, whereby there's a lot of poor people, right? There's a lot of poor people in that city. People that don't really have a lot. I mean, Lagos is a vibrant city. I mean, you have parts of Lagos in Victoria Island, which is incredibly rich, right? And then you have the other parts of the city that are incredibly poor, right? And a lot of people that go to these type of churches are poor. And you shouldn't really, if people can't afford it, they can't afford it. But you shouldn't beat them down to tithe when we're in the middle of a pandemic and these people are poor and can't afford it. It's wrong.
Now, 2 Corinthians chapter 9. Verse 10. After the cross, are the requirements for tithing and offering still what I give first? Or is it something that he's done first? 2 Corinthians 9 and 10. Now he that ministers seed to the sower both ministers bread for your food, and multiply your seed sown and increase the fruits of your righteousness. Look at that. Look at what Jesus did first. He is the one that gives seed to the sower. And he is the one that gives bread for food to the hungry. Israel couldn't do nothing when they were starving. The manna had to come down. So if it were not for God, whether you saved or not, he gives seed to the sower. Now, as children of God, I want you to understand, when you become a sower, he will give you seed.
I thought I'd just chuck in the Creflo Dollar sermon on the money seed doctrine. Money is not necessarily a seed. It's more so the intention behind it, because the Most High searches the realms of our hearts to see what's in it, and then he will judge it, and then he will give you full compensation for what's in your heart. So it's not necessarily the seed, it's more so the intention behind it and your obedience. But the prosperity doctrine tends to push the money seed doctrine really hard. And what they would always say is that it's about you sowing that seed in their church, right? Which is, i.e., you give me your money, right? And the money has to go to your church. To in other words, as the people that sitting in the congregation, you give me money. That's normally how it goes. Obviously, it's deeply problematic, but I'll just leave it here. Brothers and sisters, I hope you were edified. Shalom.